Good day, it's me Ajian teacher Yang, welcome to our class. Let's tackle about the music of the Romantic period. Music of the Romantic period 1820 to 1910. Romantic period is described as a cultural movement that stressed emotion, imagination, individualism, and freedom of expression. These characteristics are evident in music, art, and literature of the era. Nationalism was also incorporated in the music of the Romantic period. An example of a composition that shows nationalism is the Polonaise of Frédéric Chopin, which is a dance composition for piano and is famous in Poland until today. Ludwig van Beethoven bridged the music from classical to Romantic era by expressing his passion and emotions through his music. Other composers were inspired by this musical style that they started to use music as a means of expressing their emotions and individuality. This change in musical form also paved the way for expanding the orchestra as the composers explored various instrumentations. Piano music of the Romantic period is in free form such as fantasy, rhapsody, ballade, and nocturne. Program music was expressed in tone poems, such as Symphonie Fantastique. Most of the musical compositions of the era portray literature, history, emotions, and nature. Violin and strings music. Niccolò Paganini. He was born in October 27, 1782 in Genoa, Italy in a family of 6 children. His musical skills started with playing the mandolin at the age of 5. He eventually transferred his training to the violin at the age of 7 with different violin professors in Italy. His violin teachers could not keep up with the progress of his violin skills that he kept on transferring from one violin teacher to another. This led him to adopt all his teachers' influences in playing the violin. Paganini became the most famous violin virtuoso in the world. However, together with his fame came the rumors about his amazing violin skills that was said to be a gift from the devil and that he sold his soul in exchange for those skills. He was also rumored to have a problem with women and gambling. His compositions inspired a lot of other composers such as Franz Liszt, Frédéric Chopin and Robert Schumann. Some works of Niccolò Paganini. La Campanella. 24 Caprices for Solo Violin, Op. 1. Concerto No. 1 in E-B, Op. 6. 15 Quartets for Guitar and Strings Trio. The Carnival of Venice. Piano music. Piano music of the Romantic period was filled with innovations. Most of the compositions require a high level of virtuosity. Some were reinventions of sonatas from the classical era. Today, some piano compositions from the Romantic period have been adapted into songs. An example of this is Chopin's Etude Op. 10, No. 3 in E major that was used for the song No Other Love. 1. Frédéric Chopin. Frédéric Chopin was known as the poet of the piano. He was born on March 1, 1810 in Zelazowa, Poland. Frédéric Chopin began to play piano at age 4. He composed Polonaise at the age of 7. He studied piano at Warsaw Conservatory under Wilhelm Werfel and most of his music was influenced by folk music. He finished his formal education at the higher school in 1829 and soon traveled to Europe giving concerts in places such as Vienna, Munich, Paris, and London. He wrote almost exclusively for piano. He made extensive use of piano pedal in most of his compositions. Chopin composed almost primarily for the piano and some of his most well-known compositions are Fantasy in F minor, Op. 49, Revolutionary Etude, Op. 10, No. 12, and 24 Preludes, Op. 28. In 1831, Chopin arrived in Paris and met other legendary composers such as Franz Liszt, Felix Mendelssohn, and Robert Schumann. During this time in Paris, Chopin met and married the famous French writer Georges Sand, which later became a source of inspiration as well as a maternal figure in Chopin's life. In the latter part of Chopin's life, his health began to decline and he was diagnosed with pulmonary tuberculosis. Chopin died on October 17, 1849, in Paris. Chopin's music is recognized worldwide for its beauty, and his works on the piano are mainstays in the piano repertoire. Some of his music is characterized by its beautiful tone, rhythmic flexibility, grace and elegance. Some of his compositions like mazurkas and polonaises express his love for Poland. Chopin is famous for the following: ballade, a verse form or narrative that is set to music; étude, a piece composed for the development of a specific technique; mazurka, a Polish dance in triple time signature; nocturne, an instrumental composition of a pensive, dreamy mood for the piano; polonaise, a slow Polish dance in triple time that consists of a march or procession; prelude, a short piece of music that can be used as a preface and introduction to another work or may stand on its own; waltz, a German dance in triple meter; impromptu, a short free-form musical composition usually for a solo instrument, like the piano; scherzo, a musical movement of playful character, typically in ABBA form; sonata, composition for one or more solo instruments usually consisting of 3 or 4 independent movements varying in key, mood, and tempo. 2. Franz Liszt. The best word that describes the works of Franz Liszt is virtuosity. He was known as the virtuoso pianist, a composer, and the busiest musician during the Romantic era. He played and studied in Vienna and Paris while performing in concerts in the rest of Europe. Liszt was born in the village de Borhun, Hungary. He displayed remarkable talent at a young age and easily understood sight reading. His father was his first teacher at age 6. A turning point came when, in his early 20s, Liszt heard the virtuoso violinist Niccolò Paganini perform, so he decided to dedicate himself in becoming a virtuoso pianist. He was known for his symphonic poems where he translated great literary works into musical compositions. He also made piano transcriptions of operas and famous symphonies. Many of his piano compositions are technically challenging pieces. He was also known with his generosity in sharing time and money to the orphans, victim of disasters, and the many students he taught music for free. Some of Liszt's piano works: La Campanella, Liebestrom No. 3. Liszt's Hungarian rhapsodies were originally written for solo piano, but many were arranged for orchestra or other combinations of instruments. The Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 is the most popular and was the basis for the Tom and Jerry cartoon called The Cat Concerto. Un Sospiro. Sonata in B minor. Arrangements of the 9 Beethoven symphonies. Transcriptions of Lieder by Schubert. Orchestral composition. Symphonic poems, Hamlet, lay preludes. 3. Robert Schumann. One of the famous Romantic composers that beautifully combined music and words is Robert Schumann. He was a composer and music critic. Robert Alexander Schumann was born in 1810 in Twickau. His father wanted him to study law, and so in 1821, Schumann went to Leipzig to study law. However, he spent most of his time with musical and literary circles through the effort of Friedrich Wieck, who took some time to teach Schumann how to play the piano. It was also this time when he wrote some of his first piano compositions. He eventually convinced his family that he should put aside law in favor of a performing career. In 1830, Schumann went to live with Wieck in Leipzig. He soon developed a problem with his hands, effectively ending his dreams as a pianist. It was in 1834 when Schumann founded the music journal, Journal Neue Zeitschrift für Musik, wherein he edited and wrote music criticism for his publication. He wrote numerous ups, and one of which was the performance of Frédéric Chopin in Paris, France. In his journal, Schumann often wrote under two pseudonyms, Eusebius, his sensitive, lyrical side, and Florestan, his fiery, stormy side. Piano works. Abegg Variations, Opus 1, 1830. David Spundlertons, Dances of the Band of David, Opus 6, 1837. Carnival, Opus 9, 1835, a portrait of a masked ball attended by his allies and his beloved Clara. Fantasies Tuck, Opus 12, 1837, a series of mood pieces. Chrysler-Iana, Opus 16, 1838, a fantasy on the Mad Kapellmeister. Kindersinnen, Opus 15, 1838, a poetic series of evocations of a child's world. He wrote over 100 art songs, some of which are Frauenliebe und Leben, A Woman's Love and Life; Dichterliebe, A Poet's Love; Orchestral Music, Piano Concerto in a Minor, Opus 54; Overture, Scherzo; Finale, Opus 52, a mini-symphony; Concertstück in F major for four horns and orchestra, Opus 86. Program music. Program music is an instrumental composition that conveys images or scenes to tell a short story without text or lyrics. It entices the imagination of the listener. Composers of program music. 1. Hector Berlioz. Hector Berlioz is a French romantic composer born on December 11, 1803. At his young age, he learned to play guitar and flute but never became skilled in a specific musical instrument. His father was a physician who sent Hector to medical school, but he ended up pursuing a career in music. One of his famous musical compositions is a 5-movement symphony called Symphonie Fantastique. In this composition, which is also known as Fantastic Symphony, Berlioz showcased the important features in his composition in creating tone color. He assembled hundreds of musicians to produce a powerful sound. In most of his compositions, he made tone color as the basic part of his musical language. Story of Symphonie Fantastique. A young, extremely sensitive and imaginative musician tries to kill himself with opium due to depression caused by discouraged love. Unfortunately, the dose was not enough and does not kill him, but instead plunges him into a heavy sleep flocked with nightmares. His experiences, feelings, and memories are translated into hallucinations of musical thoughts and images. The girl he loves was transformed into a melody, and like a recurring theme, he meets and hears everywhere. Each movement of the symphony refers to a different vision in the young musician's mind. Sequence of Symphonie Fantastique. To Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky. Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky, who was born on May 7, 1840 in Votkinsk, Russia, was known for his ballet music. He first studied law and became a law clerk in St. Petersburg in his 20s. He rebelled and began to study music at the conservatory, also in St. Petersburg. As a big fan of Mozart, Tchaikovsky studied composition with Anton Rubinstein and moved to Moscow and started teaching at the new conservatory. He continued his music career in New York despite having marital problems and became famous after composing the musical poem Fatum and Romeo and Juliet. He composed haunting melodies and used a great deal of folk music in his symphonic works. Unfortunately, there are very few surviving manuscripts written by Tchaikovsky. His fame peaked in the last 10 years of his life and later died due to cholera. Tchaikovsky's famous compositions: Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty, The Nutcracker, Romeo and Juliet, 1812 Overture, Symphony No. 2, Symphony No. 6 Pathetic, Piano Concerto No. 1. 3. Camille Saint-Saëns. Camille Saint-Saëns was known as a talented musician from an early age. He was born in Paris on October 9, 1835 and started his music through the help of his aunt by teaching him piano lesson when he was only 2 years old, and afterward he began composing piano piece at age 3. He was considered as a composer who creates elegant music, neat, clean, polished and never excessive. One of this example is the Swan. As an organist and one of the best pianists of his time, he sat very still at the piano and played gracefully and cool. Some of the facts during the peak of his career in musician and composer: many beautiful buildings, churches, and instruments were being built in France, which includes the famous Eiffel Tower. Best known music of Camille Saint-Saëns: Carnival of the Animals, Danse Macabre and his Symphony No. 3. The Swan. Over 300 works, unusually in all genres, including 03 operas, Samson and Delilah the only one remembered, 05 symphonies, best known No3 the Organ Symphony, 03 concertos for violin and orchestra, 05 concertos for piano and orchestra, 02 concertos for cello and orchestra, 0 organ music, 0 numerous pieces for the piano, 0 approximately 100 songs, 0 chamber music, 0 sacred music including a requiem.
So that's it for today. I hope you learned a lot from our lesson today. Thank you for watching.